Hello and welcome to the first presentation of the day. My name is Olivia Horton and I am Senior Creative Researcher at the Future Laboratory. If you haven't heard of us, we are essentially a futures consultancy. So we really provide brands and businesses like yourselves with insight into emerging and kind of evolving consumer behaviours and analysis of markets that really kind of helps you innovate and future-proof yourself in this kind of ever-changing world. Today I'll be taking you through our recent macro trend, recuperative living, which looks at new directions in beauty and wellness in the aftermath of Covid-19. So I'm just going to begin today by covering off some of what we'll look at in the next kind of hour or so. We're going to begin with drivers, and this is really where we look back at these major shifts or these kind of global forces of change that really have the potential to kind of reshape the world that we live in. And then we're going to look at insight. And when we look at insight, it's really these kind of nascent trends that are starting to emerge or kind of come to light. And in this section, you'll really kind of understand and identify these new opportunities in the market. And then we're going to do a bit of future gazing in foresight. So really looking at what could potentially emerge in kind of the next 5 to 10 years, really getting you ahead of that game. And then finally, we'll do a quick roundup with our lab notes, which are key takeaways or thought starters that really kind of get you thinking about how to kind of maybe implement some of what you've learned today. So in true The Future Laboratory style, we always like to start with a quote that really kind of sets the tones for what we'll look at throughout this presentation. And this is a quote from Vasiliki Pedru, who is Executive Vice President of Unilever. And she's almost kind of really reflecting on the events of the past year, suggesting we need to write history, create a new beauty culture, new language, and new business models to grow the category in ways that haven't been done before. And I think this is really kind of the motto for the past year, and really kind of continues to be so in order for brands and businesses to survive this kind of ever-changing era. They can no longer afford to stay kind of stagnant, and this is not, as we know, the first and won't be the last kind of global health crisis. So they really must learn how to respond, recalibrate, and kind of adapt seamlessly if and when needed. So of course, we can't jump ahead and think about the future without acknowledging the past and the present. So thinking about the past year and what kind of a tough year it was for most industries. But I think beauty, health and wellness in particular is one of the kind of few sectors that has managed to survive and even in some cases kind of thrive. This is really evident in the kind of statistics that we see here on the slide. At the start of the year, the beauty sector had a global value of almost 370 billion, while wellness was worth 3.2 trillion. Both kind of continue to be these rapidly expanding markets. But as we know, the pandemic did put a halt on a lot of things. And as we saw on the quote in the last slide, brands and businesses have really kind of had to rethink their directions, whether this is things that are more kind of temporary or even part of their more kind of permanent long-term goals and strategies. And this is what we see in Vistaprint's latest campaign. In quite a playful, humorous manner, it kind of highlights this resilience and adaptability that we've seen from many, and in some cases even kind of quite small businesses. So let's take a quick look at that.
And now we go downtown to our field reporter Tim, who's covering reports of an asteroid set to hit the area sometime today. Scientists are unclear of it.
Interesting.
Vistaprint, your partner in an ever-changing world.
So when we think about what makes beauty, health and wellness and the sector particularly kind of paramount during this time is that we are, of course, experiencing this global health crisis. So you would expect consumers to kind of immediately look to this sector for support. But what happened quite ironically was overnight these products and these experiences that were maybe spas, salons, gyms, that once kind of helped people feel well and physically fulfilled actually became a risk to our health. And we started to see this kind of fear of touch combined with these shutdowns of physical locations that really kind of forced the sector into the digital realm, something which it hasn't necessarily been equipped for. So many kind of operations and even experiences like customer advisory or fitness classes moved to being kind of predominantly tech-led. And even more recently, we've seen this from products themselves, as you can see here from L'Oreal and its first digital makeup line. And this is really in response to kind of the rise of Zoom makeup or the evolution of kind of filters. But while brands and businesses were kind of getting used to this quick change in landscape, so have consumers been. They've been kind of readjusting their relationship and reevaluating their relationship with beauty and wellness. You know, they've spent more time indoors, more time in their own company. And as they did that, they've really kind of got better connected to their mind, their body and their soul. Interestingly, as we see here, 2/3 of people are keen to make pandemic routines a permanent part of their lives. So really taking through those routines that they've developed during the pandemic to be part of their kind of long-term lives. And with this in mind, brands are really kind of having to reprioritize. They're having to kind of put growth ambitions aside that may have been perhaps laid out in their 3 to 5 year plans, and instead focus on being really in the moment and very responsive and iterative with their consumers. Their immediate aim right now, and it should be, is to help recuperate and kind of really rehabilitate people in what we know is this kind of permanently altered landscape. So going forward, there's going to be this awful lot of consideration around not only how your products make people feel, but really about how people feel about accessing your products, your experiences, your services, and even your spaces. So now we've had that kind of quick introduction to the landscape, let's take a look at what really is driving this trend, recuperative living. So in this section, we'll explore this new immunity mindset, the rise of kind of at-home fitness, how social media is really kind of affecting beauty and the industry, a new era of customer service, and then finally this re-emergence of a DIY culture. So delving into this new immunity mindset, you know, the pandemic, as we know, has really kind of amplified consumers' awareness of germs, contagion, and really immunity. This is not something that most of us, or probably all of us, would have really considered pre-pandemic. But as we can see here, people are much more conscious of the transmission of germs, bacteria, whether that's kind of through direct or maybe indirect contact. According to a study by NC Solutions, 96% of respondents clean and disinfect their homes more than they did before the pandemic. And these preventative measures are really kind of being considered in how we look after our bodies internally as well. From kind of increased exercise to kind of improved diets. And as we can see here, 82% of Indian consumers are taking dietary supplements in a bid to augment immunity. And off the back of that, there's this really interesting quote from Alan Adamson, who is the co-founder of Metaforce, a branding consultancy. And he really kind of suggests how the meaning of immunity has evolved during this period. Yesterday, immunity referred to fighting the common cold, being healthier and building up your resistance. Today, when you use the word immunity, it's hardwired. So people are really kind of intentionally supercharging their immune systems, whether it's kind of through biohacking or maybe other forms of preventative health. Now, looking at the fitness scene, this is something that has been completely transformed by Covid-19. Many people have found these maybe kind of novel and quite connected ways to stay fit at home. And actually, as a result, don't intend to go back to the gym post-pandemic. In fact, as we see here, 59% of Americans don't intend to renew their gym memberships. And what we've seen is there's this really interesting comparison being made, I think actually by Brad Olson, who is Chief Membership Officer at Peloton. And he really says, like, once we play video games in malls, but then people discovered they could actually play them at home and experience that kind of same connection, same vibe, and the same is happening for fitness. And as a result, our living spaces are really becoming these kind of hives of activity. They're becoming the gyms. In terms of beauty and cosmetics, it's been kind of a real roller coaster. What we've seen is that cosmetics did unfortunately take quite a hit. The category fell 14% in the 52-week period ending mid-October. And this was really probably due to the lack of social occasions and the lack of really kind of in real life interactions. But as we kind of spent these times at home and this time in lockdown, it really kind of drove consumers back to makeup as they almost craved the the curiosity and experimentation that they can get from that category. And what we saw was the real impact that social media really had on the beauty sector. It really kind of highlighted how beauty can be quite positive and kind of mood boosting. And we saw this was led by very much TikTokers, Instagram influencers that were all kind of using makeup as a way to entertain, inspire, and even just kind of to speak more rawly or more authentically to their followers. And as I mentioned, beauty has really been kind of consumed by TikTok. The hashtag beauty has almost 44 billion views to date, and it's actually considered one of the platform's most popular content categories. And what we saw is, naturally, as consumers went there, brands did too and kind of had to. Among an index of 143 of the world's top beauty brands, 15% have official TikTok accounts, and this is up from 5% in October 2019. And what this really suggests is this new era of shoppertainment, where entertainment is being part of the purchase journey, really, whether that's kind of quite directly or indirectly, intentionally or kind of unintentionally. Now, on a customer service level, we've kind of also seen this complete 360. We don't have the same access to physical brand touch points as we have had previously. And we're actually experiencing everything from kind of consultancies to even kind of therapy in the digital realm. And interestingly, what we've seen is this has actually formed a more intimate and quite casual relationship between brand and consumer. One where kind of consumers might connect with brand ambassadors more directly or kind of gain expertise from advisors, all from the comfort of their own homes. And we've really seen this from brands such as Face Gym and Guerlain that have switched to these online services where it's kind of offering one-to-one classes, group tutorials, even kind of master classes. And then in the world of wellness, we've seen brands like Koa, which is this new online mental health gym, really swapping these traditional therapy formats for these new online sessions, really kind of breaking barriers in a category that hasn't necessarily experienced that before. So beauty and wellness is very much moving out of the labs and into our home to almost connect with us on that deeper level. And as we've seen, beauty and wellness has moved kind of predominantly into our homes as we no longer have access to those professionals. The beauty industry was really kind of one of the first to enter that lockdown, as close face treatments were really kind of considered that risk to our health, and kind of it has really been out of reach since. But in response to this, like I said, the home has really become that sanctuary of self-care. It became the salon, it became the spa, and customers really kind of embraced those at-home treatments the best that they could. And really with the help of, as we've just discussed, maybe those affable associates or those kind of beauty social channels, both of which really kind of made those processes much kind of easier and fun for them. And Bleach London was really one of the first kind of brands to tap into this. In the first lockdown, they launched their virtual hair party series, which really kind of guided people through this at-home hair dyeing experience. But since then, they've actually transformed this into kind of this official digital consultation service, kind of offering free one-to-one video consultations and access to that professional help that they haven't necessarily had before. And this is really what we're seeing now. It's no longer just these quick reactions, to satisfy kind of consumers that are temporarily stuck at home. It's really kind of acknowledging the fact that people might choose to continue performing these once maybe kind of considered professional treatments at home themselves. And therefore brands and businesses must really kind of learn how to implement home usage into their long-term strategies. So now we move on to insight, and this is really kind of the key trends that are starting to emerge or really kind of have that potential to grow. And here we'll look at things like antibacterial beauty, supportive skincare, which really looks at how kind of mental well-being and skincare are uniting. These emerging kind of apps or platforms that deliver this kind of level of hyper-personal care. The new purpose of bricks and mortar retail, tech-driven beauty, and then finally the importance of kind of touch on our health and well-being, which we've recently discovered. So first up, antibacterial beauty. And here we really look at the new ingredients, the new applications or formulas that are kind of prioritizing these sanitizing properties. And this is very much in response to that new immunity mindset that we just discussed in the drivers. While we've almost kind of lived like this for a year now, surprisingly, hygiene concerns are still very much a priority to consumers and are still really kind of on their mind. And in response, what we're seeing is brands actually introducing these lines of skincare or maybe kind of beauty ranges that offer that added layer of protection or kind of added layer of safety. So brands like Fuguaya 1833 have launched sanitizing fragrances for actually both skin and textiles that contain 4 types of disinfectant in one product. While Fortified Plus has tapped into skincare more specifically with a new range of facial mists, cleansers, moisturizers, all that use this ingredient called zeolite. And when we talk about zeolite, it's this natural volcanic mineral that is said to actually effectively curb the development of germs, bacteria, and microorganisms. And quite interestingly, the brand is also considering, the dehydrating effects that sanitizing products can really have on your skin. So it's incorporating moisturizing ingredients in addition, so things like collagen, hyaluronic acid, and aloe vera. And when we think about this is what ingredients development should really be about. It's about being responsive to situations around us and kind of providing products that have real purpose to our everyday needs and problems. That being said, alongside this kind of desire for products to really protect us from bacteria, there's also this kind of emerging mindset around the positive effects that good bacteria can have on health. And if we look at this kind of specifically through a beauty and wellness lens, the skin microbiome has, of course, kind of gained this mass attention in the past few years. And people are really kind of realizing the effects that a balanced skin microbiome can have on your overall, your holistic health. As Paul Schluck says here, there's important growing evidence that biodiversity on your skin is a true reflection of your overall health. And we're actually seeing that people are really kind of taken to this. What we see here is 82% of US consumers are interested in purchasing skincare designed to positively affect skin bacteria. And of course, with that kind of growing demand, brands are already responding with products. So for the Biome, whose founder I just mentioned, Paul Schluck, they've created this range of products that really kind of contain these prebiotics, postbiotics, and phytonutrients, while Ellis Day Skin Science has launched this new range of serums that really harness the positive microorganisms known as phages. So what they actually do is they almost attach to these bacterial cells and really inject them with what we call viral genomes that essentially replace that bacterial genome. And this effectively halts the bacterial infection entirely. So in terms of in beauty specifically, what they do is kind of reduce things like spots or inflammation. And I think with this trend, what's really important to kind of think about and remember is that, like many things in kind of health and well-being, we need these additional products for that extra support. So while our skin would very much survive on its own, it wouldn't necessarily thrive. So products like this really kind of help consumers to achieve that personal, perfectly balanced microbiome that they wouldn't necessarily accomplish otherwise. Something else that will really help us achieve optimum health and keep us on track is of course technology. So we've seen this shift to digi-health, to tech-driven health, and it's something that's kind of been happening for the past few years now. What we saw in drivers was really the home becoming this hub of well-being and this sanctuary of self-care. And what we see here is that on a much more kind of sophisticated, intelligent level. And when we talk about this trend, it's really kind of the idea of a routine-led care, these personalized regimes and apps that are really kind of checking in with us to make sure that we're kind of on track with our health and well-being goals. So interestingly, we've actually already seen supplement brands like Care Of really kind of explore this concept and kind of tapping into this idea of meditation, but even maybe the broader definition of meditation. And each day, what the app does is it will ask users to kind of log activities such as maybe reading or tidying up, or anything really that's kind of helped provoke this or helped evoke this positive mindset. And then what they do is over the course of a few weeks, the users can really see kind of what days that they felt good and what activities made them feel good. And maybe what days they didn't feel so good and what activities weren't completed on that day. So really creating this idea of healthy routines and brands not only being there to provide products that make people feel well, but also to provide this kind of friendly, supportive assistance that makes us feel good kind of all around. And we've also seen this from CareOS's Poseidon Smart Mirror, which is really kind of this quite interesting, all-encompassing device, as you can see here on the screen. It really uses AI and tech to kind of learn your routine and encourage, or even just to monitor different aspects of your health. So we actually have a video that looks at this in full, so let's take a look at that.
Mum needs you right now. Eco mode on. Heat the shower. John's calling you.
So now looking out of the home and into kind of retail. And as we know, retail has been kind of one of the industries that's experienced the biggest changes this year, the kind of biggest disruption. And what we talk about here is really kind of how bricks and mortar has gained this kind of totally new and completely new purpose. You know, there's a lot of negativity around store closures, around kind of the death of retail. But what people are really kind of failing to realise is that does really kind of present this whole new opportunity. We already know that built environments will kind of evolve and change quite drastically over the next kind of 10 years or so. We'll have people kind of moving out of cities, people working from home more, maybe less office space, and also less stores on the high street. So what is really going to be done with that kind of space that we have left? And what we've been looking at the Future Laboratory is this idea of bricks and mortar retail really kind of becoming this space for entertainment and content creation. So almost these are kind of exclusive venues which customers can kind of engage with brands on entirely new levels, kind of deeper levels beyond just purchasing and products. And we've already seen this from brands like Morph, which have launched their new in-store studio spaces for consumers, and perhaps those kind of consumers that are engaging in that idea of social beauty, to really kind of film or produce content for their social channels or their YouTube, and really utilise Morph staff while they can, or kind of the products in store, really interacting with the brand on an entirely new level. We've also seen it from Old Spice, which of course is the male grooming brand, and they've actually recently opened their new Barbers, which doubles as a content studio and test lab for products. So brands are really embracing this kind of these multifunctional spaces and this kind of multi-purpose definition of bricks and mortar. And this is really what Doug Stevens says here in this quote. Once we get beyond that medical worry of COVID-19, physical stores will again become vital, but less for distribution of products and more as a media channel for the retailer or the brand. So really looking at that wider definition of the store. And now looking a bit further at brand kind of consumer interaction or interaction with products. As we mentioned earlier in the trend cybercare, which was much more kind of health focused, but there really is this desire for these intelligent devices that provide us with a certain level of personalization, maybe kind of accuracy and even convenience in some ways. And here that's what we look at, but really from the perspective of beauty. So as I've mentioned kind of throughout this presentation, and as you know, we don't have that same access to stores as we have had previously, where we can maybe go in and test products or kind of get recommendations from professionals. But what we have realised is technology can actually do that job perfectly well. And we've seen brands like Chanel launch its new lip scanner that uses AR to kind of aid lipstick selection. So really that digital try-on tool. And then also brands like Anastasia Beverly Hill, which almost takes it kind of a little bit further with the launch of the Brow app, which basically enables users to kind of get their desired eyebrows through a process of almost kind of tech-driven stages. So they can complete this quiz that assesses kind of their current eyebrows and their current eyebrow look. And then they can kind of look at maybe their future eyebrow options or their future kind of eyebrow goals and against their face quite specifically. And then what the app does is it will offer grooming expertise to get from your current look to kind of that desired look. So really looking at tech beyond kind of a gimmick and really for that kind of convenience and accuracy. And while, as you can see here, these are kind of initially experiences that you could probably experience at home, you could see how maybe technology like this could potentially be kind of integrated or embedded into the store experience, and even possibly could kind of eradicate the need for those physical testers. If we can get that same accuracy and test experience through devices, then this could maybe save thousands on kind of test materials. It could possibly be more environmentally friendly, and it even really addresses some of those hygiene concerns that people still have. And now onto our final trend, positive tactility. And this is very much formed from a lot of the research that's kind of come out of the pandemic around the importance of touch in really maintaining and optimizing our well-being. Nivea, as we know, the body care giant, recently conducted some research around the state of human touch before and during the Covid-19 pandemic. And what it really revealed was quite concerningly kind of this concerning level of physical touch deprivation and really the psychological and the physical effects that this can have on us, which I don't think many of us were really kind of quite aware of, as we haven't necessarily had that kind of entirely stripped from us before. But on a bit more of a kind of positive tone, what it did highlight was this real desire for touch. As we can see here, 75% of respondents said that isolation has made them realise how important physical touch is for health. Now, in response to this, the brand is investing 17 million into this new kind of global scheme that will really kind of promote touch among humans as a way to kind of boost well-being. So really reframing that idea of touch in the health and wellness market and kind of almost highlighting new opportunities for touch. And what the brand will do is it will look in particular at those that maybe are at risk of loneliness from lack of touch. So really kind of those that might be physically impaired, maybe elderly people, or maybe those with kind of dementia. What's also interesting is that we've seen artists and creative really explore kind of this touch crisis and technology's role within this. So technology such as haptic could really kind of push this idea of reviving touch kind of further by almost introducing sensory elements like vibrations or kind of particular forces or motions, really allowing you to gain that touch and intimate experience wherever you are in the world without it kind of being a risk to your health. And Furlow, as you can see here, does just this. Its creator Rio Tadar says you could stroke the fur of your dog, touch a hand of a loved one, or feel the waves of a beach, allowing you to create that emotional connection without risking your health or others' health. So sort of this really kind of quite futuristic concept. But this is quite relevant now as we move into kind of the foresight section of the trend. So the final section, and this is where we really look ahead at the next 5 to 10 years. And in here we'll explore things like emo beauty and synthetic spas, which really look at this kind of these hyper-personal digital experiences, the online world of retail in psychomorphic stores, and then finally how our built environments and our homes will kind of begin to really prioritise well-being. So first up, this idea of emo beauty. And this really looks at how beauty and wellness are kind of converging on this whole new level, which is what we've seen throughout this presentation. But this trend really looks at how kind of almost to create these hyper-personalised experiences that will actually make you feel good all around. We've already seen kind of some levels of tech-driven personalisation with beauty quite specifically. So last year, L'Oreal launched their device which delivers customized cosmetics kind of straight into your hand from the device. But what we'll see next is how these devices will really kind of consider or kind of bring into the process these wellness considerations. So really kind of mood, emotions, sensory elements to create these combined experiences, as I said, that will really make you feel good all around. And one concept that we're already seeing explore this is Atmosphere by Seymour Powell, which you see on the slide. And as we can see here, it features almost this kind of collar-like device and chaise lounge, which you saw on the previous images. And they really work together to kind of rehabilitate the skin and kind of the overall health of urban dwellers. So how it does this is by collecting information of the wearer's locations, whether that's kind of city or countryside based, and more, or even kind of more specifically. But then it kind of syncs with their personal data, so maybe their skin type or their kind of bodily needs. And then what it will do is it will react based on the needs of your body in that specific location. So perhaps if it's kind of quite pollution heavy, it might filter the air around you. If you're kind of having hot flushes in a hot temperature, it will maybe adjust those temperature levels or humidity levels, or even kind of spray cosmetic ingredients like sun cream products to really kind of protect you. So you could see how far this could go, and it's just kind of a real reminder that these categories, beauty and wellness, which were once kind of considered quite separate, are actually being considered collectively now to really elevate that overall experience. On that note, we could also see a complete transformation of the spa experience. So this is quite interesting. And as we know, the spa experience is kind of built around these essential oils, these kind of warm feelings, these soft massaging hands. But this could really be transformed by kind of multi-sensory experiences that are maybe delivered by mixed reality technologies. And this could maybe seem a bit kind of scary and dystopian to many of you. But what we've already seen during this presentation is that digital tools, or kind of technology in general, is really recreating scenarios which we once might have experienced actually in person. So it's this huge opportunity that's already being kind of somewhat considered. And one of the concepts that we're seeing explore this is Synesthesia X1, which you can see on the slide. And it's almost this kind of reclining device that uses vibrations, lights, to really deliver this kind of whole body multi-sensory experience. So really quite a simple concept that's essentially been kind of elevated by tech. And I think what's also really important to kind of consider here is the consequences of sense deprivation on our holistic health. So as we've seen with Covid-19, and certain senses have kind of been temporarily taken away from us with those that have been affected. And it really shows that we can't rely on just a couple of primary senses, but we must consider kind of all of the senses and even how they work together. Now, on the retail front, what we saw in Insight was physical spaces were really kind of being transformed into maybe venues of entertainment or content creation as shopping kind of moved online. But what we'll see here is how these online shops will actually kind of look like, or what these online shops will actually kind of look like. So during COVID, we've actually already seen some brands really explore this idea and really kind of look at how to replicate the physical store in the digital spaces, while really actually considering the discovery and the exploration aspects that you would usually experience kind of in person. We've got one example here, Dior with their 3D digital boutique. So you can kind of see how they've started to explore this idea. But really, to take this further, what we could see was almost these online spaces become experimental shopping grounds where you could kind of incorporate quests or really kind of elevated discovery experience, making the whole purchase journey kind of entertaining and not so kind of mindless online. We've already seen some examples of this in the fashion realm in particular, where fashion kind of marketplace Zalando launched a new campaign on Google Maps. And what they did was they enabled users to kind of drop this street view icon into certain locations or certain kind of cities where they could really kind of navigate around and kind of find influencers or people that are actually wearing Zalando brands. So kind of really reimagining that path to purchase and really kind of elevating engagement in new ways. So finally looking at what our kind of built environments and our homes will really look like in the future as they kind of begin to consider our health and our well-being needs. So it's not just looking at how or looking at what products we have in our homes, it's really looking about how to incorporate those products into our homes in more intuitive ways and to kind of make our surroundings generally more intuitive. So there really might be opportunities for maybe beauty and wellness and kind of pharmaceutical brands too, to work kind of more closely to align their products and their services so that they can kind of simultaneously work in the home together. Or perhaps even to collaborate with construction companies to kind of integrate your products and your tools into kind of the building process of the home. So could we maybe walk into a room and be immediately scanned for bacteria or virus threats, or kind of have these sprays that automatically disinfect the space before we kind of arrive? Or in terms of maybe beauty kind of specifically, could we have built-in bathrooms that contain smart mirrors that maybe apply our skincare or our cosmetics for us? Unfortunately, we're actually beginning to see kind of brands and businesses really kind of consider these aspects. So My Global Home is a group of experts that work to kind of enable property developers and really empower home occupants too to kind of adopt more well-being led materials, processes and technologies into the future home or the building of that future home. So generally what we're talking about here is the home becoming kind of this place that really looks out for you and kind of looks after you. So they go from being almost these quite dumb buildings to these kind of quite smart, intuitive hubs of health maybe. Then finally, we'll look through some of the lab notes. So these are really key takeaways or kind of thought starters, discussion points to really kind of get the conversation going between you and your teams and kind of really discover how you could implement some of the themes of recuperative living into your strategies. So first up is this idea of really becoming indispensable. So as we've seen throughout this presentation really, is that brands have really kind of become part of our lives and into our lives more than they ever have. And consumers are really going to expect you to continue to remain these bastions of guidance and these bastions of kind of support going forward, not just these kind of suppliers of products. So this really is kind of really around this idea of brand friends. So finding ways to become indispensable and part of people's lives through kind of cheering them on, keeping them on track, kind of becoming advisors, or just generally making sure that they are keeping well. And then secondly, make sure you're considering the digital realm as kind of this key space for opportunity. What we do know is that it can be quite an overwhelming space for beauty and wellness brands, particularly as it's kind of quite this hands-on, touch-first category. But this is where consumers are going essentially, and this is where you're going to need to meet them there, whether it's kind of through Zoom, TikTok, or maybe WhatsApp on kind of a more casual level. So really this new era of customer service and customer experience. And then on that note of customer experience, consumers are really kind of gaining this greater understanding of how our senses could really kind of have this profound effect on our overall health and well-being. You know, we're already seeing the rise of kind of sense hacking, how to control our sensory environments in a bid to kind of improve well-being. So it's really important to consider how to bring in almost those multi-sensory elements that we talked about in some of the foresight section to really kind of revive, entice, and almost enliven these sensory-starved consumers. And that just about wraps it up here. So hopefully this presentation has kind of got some ideas marinating and really kind of some conversation started between you and your team. Please do feel free to reach out to us at any point if you do have any questions, or even if you just want to learn more around our services and our offerings. And really thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.